A BBC presenter is copping an absolute pasting tonight after viewers say she hissed when a young musician named Jesus Christ as one of his heroes, kind of like a vampire offended by a bright light. Have a look.
And just quickly, who are your heroes?
My heroes are Santan Dave, Kendrick Lamar, most of all Jesus Christ.
Oh, well, it's lovely to meet you, Daniel Chenjerai.
Now, the anchor says she didn't hiss at all. She claims she was merely taking a breath as she prepared to wrap up the interview. Joining me now is Spiked Online Editor Tom Slater, who's never short of breath. Tom, this has created a massive controversy. How did you view it?
It has. I mean, watching that clip, it's certainly not a good look. It certainly strikes a very odd note. I would struggle to believe that in that moment she was just so overcome with hatred of the Christian faith, or that young gentleman in particular, that it was a hiss. I'm sure it was just a sharp intake of breath. But seeing that clip go around the internet as quickly as it did does say something about how willing people are to believe the absolute worst about our national broadcaster, which is telling about its standing in society at the very least.
That is a very good point. Whether she meant it or not, people naturally and immediately assume the worst of the BBC, and I think the BBC is partly responsible for that. Let's talk about Donald Trump. He's escalating his push to take control of Greenland, and an extraordinary text message has been leaked. It was a message from Trump to Norway's Prime Minister in which Trump wrote, quote, "Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." A lot of journalists are now saying Trump is going to take Greenland because he's angry he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. Is that what's going on here, or do you think that's a bit too simplistic?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, it is staggering that Donald Trump's coveting of the Nobel Peace Prize might have had any influence whatsoever on this very thorny geopolitical issue that he's blundered his way into. I think the thing with Donald Trump is we often get caught between two wildly different perspectives on him. There's either the Trump derangement syndrome, which suggests that he's about to, scramble the jets over Greenland, we're about to have World War III, NATO is going to be over, and so on and so forth. Or you've got the kind of Trump devotion syndrome on the other side, which is that everything he does is absolute genius. It's all part of some sort of grand strategy, and there can't be any kind of element of it which is just him and his hurt feelings about the Nobel or anything else. It's clearly that the truth is somewhere in between. Donald Trump has been right about a lot of things on a kind of gut level, geopolitically, but also that does commingle with an element of hurt feelings, personal grievances, and he's unique in a politician, a leader of the free world, who's quite willing to openly have out those kinds of personal beefs in public. So it's a grim spectacle. I wish it hadn't come to this. I also think that Greenland, ultimately, its future should be decided by the Greenlanders and the Kingdom of Denmark. But I think we've got to look at this in a clear-eyed way, and that's not helped when we're either catastrophizing about Trump or acting as if everything he does is because he's the bee's knees. Clearly, the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think, though, that when Trump talks about the Nobel Peace Prize, I think what he's ultimately trying to get at, and I would agree with this, is that the US gets very little credit, especially from the rest of the world and Europe, for that matter, for the huge amounts of money they spend and for the incredible work they do to keep peace around the world. He's kind of made it personal, but I think the more general point is valid, that the US get all the criticism and none of the thanks for what they do and have done for many, many years. Let's move on to Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, who's called a mass meeting of Conservative MPs for tomorrow, after the party lost more MPs to Reform UK in just the last couple of days. How do the Tories stop these defections to Nigel Farage's Reform? Can they stop the defections?
That's a really big question. I mean, calling a mass meeting of Tory MPs sounds like making yourself a bit hostage to fortune, given the speed with which so many of them are heading for the exit at this point. We, of course, saw the defection of Robert Jenrick last week. We also saw the defection of Andrew Rossendale, who's a sort of more of a backbench figure, but nevertheless someone who had been a Conservative MP for almost 25 years. Nigel Farage has set this deadline of May the 7th, the local elections here in England, for more defections. After that point, he's not going to accept them. So the gauntlet has been thrown down by the Reform UK party. It's really difficult to tell. I mean, on the one hand, it's quite clear that now all of the momentum on the right of British politics is behind Reform, and the Conservatives have after these defections look far more weakened. All that being said, what are you going to do as the leader of the Conservative Party? Throw in the towel, act like this isn't a big deal, act as if it doesn't bother you that so many people are being so actively disloyal. So it's a really difficult situation. But I think essentially the Tory party is being left behind by the fact that the tectonic plates of British politics are shifting. The public barely remember that they're there most of the time. And what a staggering thing that is, given this was, up until very recently, the Democratic world's most successful political party and one that dominated governing this country for 150 years. So it's a difficult situation. Kemi Badenoch certainly wouldn't want to start from here. But I think all she's left with is trying to project some strength, saying you're either with me or you're out. And that's all she's left with at this very difficult impasse for her and her party.
Just very quickly, in a word or two, Tom, those defecting to reform, they're not insignificant MPs either, are they?
No, not at all. I mean, Robert Jenrick was very much the standard bearer of the right in the Tory party. Yeah. People like Andrew Ross just mentioned, very, very loyal. This is not just about a few despondent characters around the edges. This is potentially much more significant defections to come as well. Yeah. So it's really potentially critical for the party. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Tom Slater, appreciate your time tonight.